Tensions between the US and Iran appear to have de-escalated after President Donald Trump announced there will not be military action taken in response to Iran's missile strikes on two US military bases in Iraq. North America correspondent Catherine Diss joins us now from Washington. Catherine, g'day. So Donald Trump addressed the nation earlier. What did he have to say?
That's right, Joe. He made this announcement to the nation with his defence and security aides by his side. He decided to make this announcement during prime time TV in Iran rather than here. It was during Washington work hours, and he appeared to be a fairly reasonable and sensible president. Which is, of course, in contrast to what we're used to hearing from President Trump, who is typically erratic and unpredictable. But despite this somewhat subdued tone that he held this morning, he did choose to start this address with a somewhat provocative statement whereby he said as long as he's president, Iran would never have a nuclear weapon. He then quickly went on to say that he was pleased that Iran seemed to be de-escalating its tensions, that it was stepping down. So while on one hand he seemed to extend an olive branch of peace to Iran by saying that America wouldn't respond with any sort of military attack, on the other hand, by making this comment, he was reminding the Iranians of just where they sit in his mind. And he also reminded them that if they were to go on and do any further attacks which caused any greater bloodshed, that of course America would react. So this is most likely to enrage Iranians further. We haven't yet heard any sort of commentary from them, but they have continued to defy the US with many of the orders that it has imposed on them, particularly those sanctions on its nuclear weapons. And of course, after the death of its top general Qasem Soleimani, it also announced that it would continue enriching uranium there. So while Donald Trump has appeared here to back away from any sort of military response, he hasn't let them get away with it scot-free. He rather announced that America would slap a new round of what he called punishing sanctions on Iran. It's unclear as to what sort of shape that will take at this stage. There are already a number of different sanctions imposed by America on Iran, so it's difficult to see just how much further they could take them. But he also spoke about the 2015 nuclear deal, whereby he called on the other signatories of that agreement to pull out, that being Britain, Germany, France, and of course China and Russia. He pulled out of the deal in 2018, and he's urged for a unified approach from other world leaders today. Let's take a listen.
As long as I'm President of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place.
And Catherine, what's the latest on the investigation into this terrible plane crash that happened in the general time frame that these ballistic missiles were being launched into Iraq?
Well, look, details on that are still scant at this stage, Joe, but what we do know is that that plane did go down nearby the Tehran International Airport. We know that all on board the 176 people, passengers and crew, were killed. It, of course, happened only a short period of time after those ballistic missiles were sent by Iran into Iraqi territory. So, of course, many started to question whether or not that plane was hit by one of those ballistic missiles by mistake. Iranian officials initially came out and said that it was due to a mechanical failure, but now new images and vision has emerged of that plane, which appears to show that it was breaking apart mid-air, which could mean anything from what experts have been saying today. It could have been hit by a strike, or it could have been a mechanical failure. So at this stage, it's really difficult to know what it may be, but if it was hit by one of those ballistic missiles by mistake, that would mean that this attack by Iran, which wasn't intended to have any great consequence has had a great consequence. Boeing, which is the manufacturer of that plane, hasn't given us any sort of indication today as to what it thinks may have caused the crash, other than to release a statement extending its sympathies to the families of those who lost loved ones. But of course it comes at a difficult time for Boeing, which is already dealing with the fallout from 2 fatal crashes of its 737 MAX plane, which led to the deaths of 346 people.
And Catherine, there are a lot of Canadians on board that plane. Is there any explanation as to why that was the case?
Look, at this stage, I'm not sure as to why there were a significant number of Canadians on board. I suggest it's probably to do with where the flight was going, but we have heard from the Canadian Prime Minister today, Justin Trudeau, who has come out and extended his sympathies and condolences to those families. He says he's shocked and saddened by the tragedy, and that the Canadian government would be working with international authorities to make sure that that tragedy is fully investigated.
Okay, Catherine Diss reporting there from Washington.